States response from the Situation Room. That is a brand new photograph. I should mention that it's courtesy of the U.S. government, a White House photograph being released from inside the Situation Room. Both have now spoken out on Iran's attack.
The attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. And this is testament to Israeli military capability and U.S. military.
We will never hesitate to take whatever action is necessary to defend U.S. forces and interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists.
This is a fast-moving story, and NBC's Aaron McLaughlin has been reporting for us live in Jerusalem. Aaron, what can you tell us on the ground?
Hey there, Ari. Well, I was just speaking via Zoom with an Israeli military spokesperson in central Israel, and he was telling me that this was the largest ballistic missile attack ever launched on Israel in Israel's history. They're taking this extraordinarily seriously. More than 180 missiles hitting various points, most of them having been intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome system and other air defense systems. Also, he was pointing to a coalition of countries that came to Israel's defense, led by the United States, although he would not go into specifics in terms of what countries were involved in that effort. But he was pointing to the damage done. Even though most of those missiles were intercepted, some did make it through. And he was at a location, an undisclosed location, he said, in central Israel, a building in a residential neighborhood that had been hit by missile shrapnel. And he showed me on Zoom some of the damage. I want you to take a look.
We are here in central Israel, where shrapnel from one of the ballistic missiles, we're saying just a small fraction, because these ballistic missiles have a potential to blow up buildings. Shrapnel from one of these ballistic missiles hit here in central Israel, causing significant damage to this area, residential area in central Israel.
So what are we looking at there?
This is a near a residential area. There's some shops here and restaurants, and you see shrapnel from one of those ballistic missiles that fell nearby here. We can't go to the site; it's unsafe. But this is an area where there's collateral damage.
Now the big question becomes, how will Israel respond? We did hear from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the beginning of his political security cabinet meeting. This response will be a political decision on the part of his government. He said Iran made a big mistake tonight, and it will pay for it. Ari.
Aaron McLaughlin, thank you very much, reporting from Jerusalem. Today, we should mention President Biden did also, we showed part of his statement, reiterate the administration's support for Israel.
It's also a testament to intensive planning between the United States and Israel to anticipate and defend against the brazen attack we expected. Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel.
That's just some of what we heard there. May have cut out slightly at the end. I want to bring in David Rothkopf, a foreign policy expert who worked in the Clinton administration. How are you, David?
Good. How are you?
David, go ahead and tell us your understanding of what's happening at this hour.
Well, I think at this hour, people are waiting to see how many steps we take up the escalatory ladder at this point. There is an expectation that the Israelis are likely to strike Iran, possibly strike oil and gas facilities, possibly strike part of their nuclear program, and may do this as early as this evening. You recall just last evening we were saying the incursion into Lebanon could lead to escalation. Today we saw that. Tomorrow we'll probably be speaking about the next step in this escalation. But I do think it's important that both the president and the vice president made it very clear that the United States is standing with Israel and is working to help defend Israel against this unprecedented attack.
And David, I think the audience can hear you. I did lose your audio, which I mentioned, only to say that if I asked something that you've just covered, I apologize. But when you look at what the administration has done thus far, and we are going into the debate tonight, we're going to hear from the running mate to Harris, who's the vice president of the United States. What else do you think is important that the United States wants to get across? And is there any unity or potential bipartisanship about the policies ahead for the United States and region?
There should be unity. This is the kind of situation in which there has been unity in the past. That's not what we've heard today. We heard Donald Trump, at a rally going through his usual litany of, well, this would never have happened under my watch, except, of course, it did happen under his watch. There was a missile attack on U.S. troops in Iraq to which he did not respond. He said, he would be tougher. But of course, when he pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, Iran was a year away from nuclear weapons. Today, they're weeks or just a couple of months away. So this situation today is much more dangerous because of him. And, he was, ranting on about other kinds of things, an app on Kamala Harris's phone by which she could, call up cartels to come across the border. In other words, he wasn't serious. J.D. Vance has not been serious about these kinds of things. The president, the vice president in the Situation Room today were showing what real leadership in a crisis like this looks like. And I think that's going to be the contrast a lot of people will see during the debate tonight. Who's ready for this? Which side is prepared to lead? Because this crisis is not going away.
David Rothkopf, thank you for joining us on, again, a very volatile set of developments in the region. The Mideast turmoil is certainly likely, as mentioned, to be a topic at tonight's debate. The running mates face off just hours from now. This is the final scheduled debate of the election cycle. The vice presidential picks, Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, will square off in New York City. This is at CBS's studios, so they're doing it right where they normally shoot many of their programs. And right now we have a newsmaking guest on the big political night, the governor of the key state of Pennsylvania, who spoke at the Harris rally announcing the pick of Tim Walz. You can see him there with Vice President Harris. Walz, of course, takes the stage tonight. Shapiro is one of the Democratic Party's national stars, a big guest for a big night. Governor Josh Shapiro joins us now. Thanks for being here.
Great to be with you, Ari.
Great to have you. We're going to get into domestic policy, some politics, all of that. But first, I thought I would also get your thoughts on the volatile situation in the Middle East, the Iranian attack on Israel, and really how that plays into the debate tonight. We heard a little bit from the vice president. I expect we'll hear more from her tonight. What do you see there?
Look, this is obviously an unprecedented attack on Israel, and presumably based on the comments that have been made, it will be met with a swift response. Let's not forget that Iran is the largest exporter of terrorism around the world, including to its proxy Hezbollah, who have been attacking Israel from the north for the better part of the last year. This is a serious and dangerous and volatile situation, and we need to make sure that Iran pays a price for its unprecedented attack.
Understood. And again, we here in the newsroom are keeping an eye on all of that, and we'll keep voters, viewers, voters, everyone informed based on what happens. Turning to the domestic policies in the debate, we looked at how J.D. Vance has sounded in his past debate when he ran for Senate. Abortion was a big issue then, as you and Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have all emphasized. In many ways, it's an even bigger issue right now. Let's take a look at how he sounded in that debate.
I recognize, of course, that a lot of people are pro-choice, that they have a different view on this issue than I did. I was raised by a woman, the woman who saved my life, my mamaw, was a woman, an old-school Democrat who believed that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. That's not Congressman Ryan's view.
Do you expect to hear a similar J.D. Vance tonight, and what is your response?
Well, look, first off, I think abortion and reproductive freedom is a central issue in this election. It's a central issue on people's minds. And J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are completely out of step with where the majority of Pennsylvania voters are, and dare I say, the majority of Americans are. I mean, Donald Trump and his sidekick, J.D. Vance, will sign a national abortion ban. We'll take away power from governors like me who have protected women in our home states. And I think that is incredibly dangerous. I expect that Tim Walz is going to make that case and make clear that there is an incredible contrast in this race between where J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are as compared to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I think this is a central issue, and J.D. Vance is out of step with the American people.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about the Rust Belt, the Blue Wall, whatever you want to call it. If you poll on these candidates, and I've cautioned people that, you know, we take this with a grain of salt. But they're both polling in about the 40s there, Walz and Vance, in terms of approval. There is the idea that J.D. Vance has a kind of a better edge for the Republican Party. I want to read one thing from The Atlantic for you. They argue that Vance can squeeze, quote, Trumpism through his own post-liberal populist tube and produce something that looks like a coherent ideology, the sharp TV soundbite counterweight to Trump's rambling rally speech. With those points in mind and the fact that Trump didn't do so great in the last debate, that he could use perhaps whatever you call that, a polish tonight. What do you think about that aspect of what Vance can do tonight?
I mean, I don't think J.D. Vance has been polished or coherent since the moment he took the stage as Donald Trump's running mate. I mean, in addition to that, he's been lying to the American people, lying to them about Springfield, Ohio, the very community that he took an oath of office to serve and protect as their United States Senator. He lies routinely, and largely he lies to the American people because he's lying to himself about Donald Trump. I mean, he knows better than this. The guy's pretty well educated, and so he probably took a debate class or two over at Yale. So he is maybe polished, but it doesn't escape the fact that what he is selling is not something I think people are buying. I think he's goofy. I think he is not honest with the American people. He continues to lie about his home state. And I do not expect him to do particularly well this evening.
Is goofy the new weird?
I don't know. I just think, look, I think the American people look at him and go, well, I don't know. That's goofy. That's weird. That's out of step. And by the way, more importantly, they look at him and say, you're not talking about anything that's going to make my life better. Look, elections are about the future. They're about electing people who are going to make our lives better, who are going to make it easier to live in the community that they love, make it more affordable, make us safer at home and abroad. And J.D. Vance and Donald Trump have offered no serious policies, no serious plans, no serious vision on how to do that for the American people.
A lot of people in the party think that you are a good communicator. So these next questions, I think, will be interesting to get your response as we go into the debate, because there are attacks on Kamala Harris and Tim Walz that are sort of lies or out of bounds. We don't necessarily platform those. And then there are policy questions about her evolution. You're, I'm sure, familiar with some of this. I'll put up on Harris's stances here. A Washington Post says the policies have shifted in her different races. Harris in 2019 embraced the fracking ban, supported Medicare for all. This was when she was running in the primary, some people say to the left, advocated abolishing private health insurance. On an issue that I know you and other Democrats care a lot about, Supreme Court reform. It's interesting, back when she was first running in the primaries, she backed something that she said I was, quote, open to expanding the Supreme Court. Now she says, well, common sense Supreme Court reforms like these ethics rules, perhaps term limits that Biden has proposed, but not going as far as she would